Hey everyone, welcome back to John's Watch. Today I'm going to be talking about a new game called Funko Fusion. This game was released on September 13th, 2024. Its regular price is $64.99 Canadian, or your regional equivalent, and is developed and published by 1010 Games Limited. The store page says, experience a festival of fandom like never before in Funko Fusion. Play through iconic worlds and mash up characters inspired by some of your favorite franchises in an action-adventure game with uniquely authentic, irreverent humor from the creative minds of 1010 Games. And I think it's so funny that they the developers reference themselves in that description. They say this game comes from the creative minds of 1010 Games. This is their first game. Why should that be something that that's meant to inspire trust in the buyer? Nobody knows what the creative minds of 1010 Games are capable of. Apparently this. So honestly, that description doesn't tell you much about the game at all. The screenshots don't tell you anything about the game at all. So I was really curious in checking this game out. I used to be a Funko collector. If people don't know what Funko Pops are, and I'd be amazed. They look like bobbleheads, but they don't move. They're just kind of big head, big eye versions of pretty much everything in the world has a Funko Pop. They're little mini figures, and they're kind of ugly. They've got big heads, big eyes, and practically any franchise you can think of, video game, TV, movie, sports, has Funko Pops, I'm sure. And so, like I said, I used to be a bit of a Funko collector. I haven't bought Funko Pops in years at this point. I'm currently actively selling many of my Funko Pops because just want to get rid of them at this point, not a fan of them anymore. But still, I was somewhat interested in this game. Like I just said, the description and screenshots don't tell you really anything about the game. It's basically a Lego game. If you're familiar with Lego Star Wars, Lego Harry Potter, whatever, it's very similar to that. You play as characters from these franchises. You do various objectives in levels, but you can smash up, all the environments and, furniture and benches and things like that. You just break them, and they'll give you the game's currency, which is not Lego bricks, it's vinyl in this case. And that's kind of it, really. It's the Lego gameplay loop, but with new franchises that probably weren't or wouldn't have made it into Lego games. A bit more mashup, lots of different franchises in this one, with a Funko coat of paint. Definitely better graphics than Lego games, I'd say, which makes it all the more surprising that this game is a complete disaster. Now, it released on September 13th. I am currently recording this video September 14th, so I did all my playing for this on the day it released, on the 13th and the 14th. I've put in 2.5 hours so far, and there are so many issues with this game. We'll start with a fun one. Most of the achievements are broken. There's various collectible achievements for doing things like killed 1,000 enemies, that's a decently late game achievement. There's another one for having a total of 5 million vinyl. I think by the end of a level you've probably got about 20,000 or something like that. Other ones like that, played as every story character, collected 50 variants, lots of different collectible achievements like that. These are all broken. The first time you do anything related to that achievement, you automatically unlock it. So something like killed 1,000 enemies, 76% of players have already unlocked that by the second day. And it's just completely broken. Popping off 100 Funko heads, 72% of people have done that. And it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small issue. The developers have said on the Steam forums that they're going to fix these achievements issues. That's probably going to be one of the first things, or one of the fixes in the first patch that comes out. I don't fully know how it works, but they did say that they'll be able to take away the achievements that you weren't supposed to have got and reset that progress. Be very interested to see what happens with that. So again, it's a relatively small detail, a small issue in the grand scheme of things, but it really does speak to the lack of attention to detail that's gone into this game. Another one is that it launches with Day 1 DLC. There's a $13.49 DLC called the Walking Dead Pack. It literally just comes with, I think it's 4 Walking Dead characters that you can play as. It doesn't work. You cannot unlock the characters. You can buy it, you can add it to your account. It doesn't unlock the characters at all, it's just broken in game. And again, well, this is more of an issue because it does cost money, but again, just kind of speaks to the lack of attention to detail that's gone into this game. But there are definitely far greater issues with Funko Fusion. I think at the core of it, the actual gameplay loop and game itself is not well done. This is one of the most obtuse and unintuitive modern games I've ever played. I say modern games because you can go back to games in the 90s or whatever, and those, you know, a lot of them are really hard to do nowadays without having a guide or something. But this is a modern game released in 2024, and I was constantly getting stuck. I only played for 2.5 hours. I constantly had to really search around. I think there was one level where I was just walking around in this room for 15 minutes trying to find what on earth I was missing. And eventually I had to look up a YouTube video of somebody playing it because it's so new, there's no walkthroughs or anything. And in the YouTube video, they attacked these doors and they broke the doors. And that was all I had to do. But nothing in the game made me think that that was a possibility. I know you can break all sorts of things in these games, like furniture and stuff that I said, but nothing in the game made me intuitively think, oh, I should be breaking the doors. I remember even in the tutorial, even in the very opening of the game, I was completely lost. I don't think I had to look up what to do, but I do remember, again, just wandering around for minutes to see what I was missing. And I think it was just I had to go talk to someone specific, but the game didn't direct me to who I was meant to talk to. Some of the time you'll have this vague objective description in the bottom right. So I was playing the Scott Pilgrim levels. That's all I played. I stopped playing after I finished the Scott Pilgrim level because I was ready to do my video. And the description is usually like, find your way into Club Fusion or something like that. And sometimes it's okay, helpful-wise, because it kind of directs you or gives you an idea of where you're supposed to be going or what you're supposed to be looking for next. But it's really bad at actually directing you to where this might be. Using that example of find your way into Club Fusion, later, this is right at the end of the Scott Pilgrim levels, you have to get into Club Fusion, but there's no like sign for Club Fusion or anything. There's no objective marker for it at all. There's just a guy standing by a very nondescript door who you can go up to, and he just says password, and that's it. And I'm someone who's watched Scott Pilgrim many times, so that's why I chose Scott Pilgrim, because it's a story I'm decently familiar with. And even I didn't remember that this scene was referencing the end of the movie where Scott is asked for a password and he just, I think he says shut up and punches the guy to death. And so in the game here, you have to attack the guy saying password, and that'll open the door behind him. And there was nothing that would lead me to think that was the solution again. I only attacked him because I was getting frustrated and just kind of swinging my weapon around at whatever I could see, and I literally accidentally found my way in here. And this is someone who's decently familiar with Scott Pilgrim, and I was still stuck on this part. And so I can't imagine how it would have been for someone who doesn't know Scott Pilgrim. Like, how would I cope if I went into the Battlestar Galactica levels? I don't know anything about that. I feel like the entire story of that is going to completely pass me by. The story is told very quickly. There will be a few cutscenes per world. I think in the Scott Pilgrim one there was 4 or 5 cutscenes, something like that altogether. And there's no dialogue. It's just grunts and hoo-hoos and, you know, funny cute little sounds and stuff. All the characters are represented through Funko Pops, but there's no dialogue whatsoever in the cutscenes. So really the cutscenes just kind of recreate 30-second chunks of the movie, and that's how they tell the story, pretty much. And the cutscenes are okay, they look good. Cutscenes always get introduced really awkwardly. If you think of like a Dark Souls cutscene, normally you'll enter a fog wall and the game will fade down to black and then fade into the cutscene. And so it's really clear that a cutscene's about to start because it'll literally fade down to black. Funko Fusion just really awkwardly cuts to solid black for a couple of seconds and then jumps right into the cutscene. You know, Dark Souls fades down and then fades up. It just looks quite smooth. This is completely the opposite of smooth. It's so jarring whenever a cutscene starts. The first time it happened, I definitely thought my game had crashed. Again, just little attentions to detail that aren't there. It doesn't make for a particularly good viewing or playing experience. Could look a lot better, but this is the version they decided to ship. The levels are pretty boring and repetitive. One of the boss fights I did literally just did the exact same fight. I think it was 3 times. It just repeated the exact same thing 3 times. It was the Chris Evans boss fight. He plays Lucas Lee, the skater movie star, and he's got all the clones. And so to start the fight off, you've got 3 clones positioned in different parts of the level. And one of them you've got to knock down like a scissor lift, and because he's invincible up top and he's throwing things at you. So you knock down the scissor lift, and then you can beat him up, and then he disappears. Another one you've got to do like a Donkey Kong jumping over barrels to get up to him. And another one you've got to shoot lights in a specific order to make him jump down. Once you've beat all 3 of them, and the whole time this is going on, you're being attacked by other various clones that, you know, just kind of get in your way. They just don't do much damage, and they die pretty easily. Once you've beaten all 3 of them, the main version of Lucas Lee comes out. He skates around you. You have to attack him in specific times, because he's invincible most of the time, because of course he is. And then once you've done enough damage to him, it just resets completely. Like, the main Lucas Lee goes away again. Those 3 clones are back in the exact same place again, and you just have to repeat it. And you have to do this 3 times, and it's just so boring and repetitive. And this was the same for pretty much every boss fight. Every boss was throwing just random annoying stuff at you the whole time. So you're always dodging around and having to heal sometimes, because these things are just getting in your way. It's just not fun at all. I don't know why this is the gameplay loop they came up with, because obviously the Lego games do pretty well. Like, they're not my favorite kind of games, but they're decently fun, mindless entertainment. But yeah, I just found like this game wasn't fun at all. There's no way to save your game if you're in the middle of a level. If you quit out of a level, you will have to restart it from the very beginning, and you always start back in the hub world. So there's just means there's an extra loading screen every time you want to go back into a level. And if you have a crash or anything, I was lucky enough not to have any crashes or game-breaking bugs in my 2.5 hours, but judging by the Steam forums, other people have not been so fortunate. You know, if you crash in the middle of a level, enjoy just doing the whole thing again, because there's no proper autosave or anything. Performance is really poor. I struggled to run Star Wars Outlaws, which was a big open world game with very good graphics. So I was kind of expecting to struggle with that one. I was not expecting to struggle to run Funko Fusion. At the time of recording, I'm actually in the process of building a really beefy new PC. And so a couple of games I've been saving for when I've got that PC, because then I won't have to struggle with performance as much anymore. Funko Fusion I did not think looked like a game I had to save, but obviously I was wrong. You can unlock the frame rate, but I was pretty much always between 50 and 70 FPS. Some of, like, I think it was the last Scott Pilgrim level was just always around like 52 FPS. Nothing I did would make it go higher. It's got some decent graphics settings, and something really nice is that most of the settings do actually change in real time, and you can actually see the image behind the menu adjusting as you change settings, which is always great. It doesn't, it means you don't have to go in and out of menus constantly to see if the game looks bad or not. So it was quite nice seeing like, oh, this setting I can afford to turn down to low because it doesn't look too bad, but this one I should leave at medium or high because it looks really bad on anything else. But yeah, performance really was not good enough for a game like this. I don't think it should be as graphically intensive as it seems to be. There's also a couple of issues of settings not working properly. There's an on-off toggle for motion blur. If you turn it off and back out of the menu, you will quickly see that motion blur is still on, because for some reason motion blur is lumped into the post-processing setting. There's actually no way to fully disable post-processing. You can only turn it down from high all the way to minimal, and once you turn it down to minimal, you'll see you suddenly do not have motion blur. Why on earth is motion blur supposedly in two different settings? I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing the on-off toggle for motion blur doesn't work, and they've just accidentally put it in post-processing. Again, the attention to detail is just not there with this game. The game is also surprisingly massive to install. I was absolutely shocked that it takes up 40.61 gigabytes. Not 14, 40 gigabytes. That is preposterous. I have no idea why it's so big. That is just blowing my mind. I almost forgot to mention the reflections. The reflections are so bad. I had turned the reflections down a bit because that's usually a setting I can deal with. And so I could handle reflections looking a bit blurry or not great, but they're completely wrong. If your character is facing into a reflective window, you would expect to see the front of your face. No, the image is flipped. It's like mirrored but flipped. So if you're facing the mirror, and you'll be able to see this in the video now, you'll just see the back of your head. If you face away from the mirror, you'll see your character's eyes. It is one of the most bizarre bugs I've ever seen. Again, attention to detail is not there in this weird, horrible reflections. And the first time I found a window or whatever, I was just playing around with it for a couple of minutes because it looked so awful. So there you go, those are my thoughts on the first 2.5 hours of Funko Fusion. I think maybe if it gets several major patches, it might be better. I do think the core gameplay loop is not good enough. Maybe if they add some better directions and signposting or something to make things more obvious, it might be a bit better, because there would be less frustration and less having to run around and try and figure out what you're missing because it's not obvious. Possibly that would make it better. I think it's too expensive for what it is. I get there's a ton of licensing deals going on with this, I assume. Still too expensive for what it is. So yeah, I could maybe recommend this if it's on a significant sale and it's had several big patches to fix all the issues and also improve it a bit. But right now, this is awful. It's really, really bad. That was a look at Funko Fusion. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!